Mainstream's a brand new car.
Well, we got it pretty wrong already on the last interview, actually. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Transfer Talk, episode 2. Pretty much our first official one. As yesterday we did do a video, but as it turns out, the audio was off for the entire duration of the video. At the moment, I'm just trying to work on sound to balance it out, because there is a big imbalance. And the way we're going to do that is by turning off the audio. Maybe see if there's a way. See if there's a way I can turn it down. That's probably the best way to do it, I think. Yeah. Okay, so we've set it quite low, and we've turned off the track. Okay, so that's fine. So we've got the annoying part out of the way. So yes, this is Transfer Talk, episode 2. What we do here is go through, well, what's already happened, what's going to happen, and of course, if you're interested in football, then, without question, transfers is probably one of the most entertaining parts about football. It's something that I've always felt, I've always believed that it was better. So we're going to get these teams up and running just so it's done. I don't really care about these drills, I just want it to end, so we'll just make it end just like that. So we should probably talk about the big headline news, shall we?
And here we are at one of the great venues for football anywhere in the world.
We have an absolute shocker, I must say. Good news if you're a Chelsea fan, I'll say, because Chelsea fans do have extremely mixed views on Maurizio Sarri. A lot not a fan, a lot very confused by his management style, a lot just in general not really that happy. And we're going to turn this down even further because I know how bad the audio balance can be. So we're going to turn this stuff right down. And we're going to start this way with a very unconventional method whilst I tell you this breaking news, because I am going to take a shit as we speak. I'm going to be shitting live. Something that probably doesn't happen all that often. Well, here we go. So, Maurizio Sarri is now, I believe it's official. He is the Juventus manager for next season. Not something I saw coming. I did see Maurizio Sarri leaving Chelsea because ever since he went out into his interview and basically said, if my career is being called into question already, I don't want to stay. Completely respect that, to be honest. It's a very respectful view to have. Go out with your head held high before you get sacked, like every other Chelsea manager under Roman Abramovich. So this is a nice change. You would say it's a very nice change for Chelsea to have a manager leave on his own accord. But no one saw him going to Juventus. I certainly didn't. And thank you for putting up with that. Yes, I certainly didn't see the transfer of Maurizio Sarri coming to Juventus. I thought Juventus might have taken Antonio Conte back, and then it'd be Sarri to go to the likes of Inter Milan. But no, he's going to Juventus, and it is Antonio Conte who is going to Inter Milan. or is at Inter Milan, I should say. That is a done deal. On the topic of managers, and especially on topic with Chelsea, the biggest rumour is that Frank Lampard will be taking over from Maurizio Sarri as the manager of Chelsea. I really don't see any positives from this at all. Frank Lampard is my favourite player in history. He is my all-time favourite. He is my Ronaldo. And I think it would be a terrible decision for him to join Chelsea at the moment, because he's just not there. You know, he's been a manager for a year, and you know what? He's done a banging good job. You know, without question, he did a great job. But do Chelsea really want to sign a manager with 1 year experience? Like, we're fighting for serious prizes here. We're not fighting for the top 6 of the Championship. We're fighting for the top 4 of the Premier League. That's beyond a big jump. It's a huge jump. Huge jump. There's so many managers that I believe we could get for probably a cheaper compensation price than what Derby would ask for Lampard anyway. And yeah, I think Lampard is destined to be a Chelsea manager at some point, and maybe might have more than one stint as manager. Who knows, you know, maybe do a Mourinho, have 2 separate stints. But either way, it's too soon, in my opinion. We need someone with a bit of experience. And no, I'm not angling towards Arsene Wenger. I absolutely think he would suck at Chelsea as a manager. I think his philosophy is a bit outdated, as it proved in the later years at Arsenal. And yeah, we need someone to bring something different. Chelsea needs to be different. We can't just keep sacking managers every 2 years. It's bad for the team. It's bad for consistency. I maintain if we had been more consistent and more loyal to our managers, we would probably have fizzled out any early attempts for Manchester City's titles. What I mean by that is I strongly believe that Chelsea could easily have 3 or 4 more Premier League titles had we been loyal to previous managers, especially successful managers. Like the likes of, maybe not Mourinho, because maybe Mourinho did make the most of his time there, but Conte deserved more time. You know, they still won the FA Cup. Sarri, I say fans are happy that he's left and he's gone out with his head held high, but again, you know, maybe we would have done better next year. Who knows? But I personally don't believe so, just under Sarri. But I was just using it as an example of how changing managers is really not a good philosophy. And I don't see how... The fact that we have been this successful, to me, makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. I have absolutely no idea how Chelsea have been as successful as they have been. And the fact that we'd won... we'd won the Champions League with an interim manager. You know, with Roberto Di Matteo, we won. It'd be like if Guus Hiddink had won a trophy, you know, after Mourinho had left the second time. Yeah, it was just Chelsea doesn't make a lot of sense when it comes to manager decisions, and this is of course evident. Nevertheless, we took the risk on Sarri. In the long run, definitely didn't pay off, but in the short run it did, and ultimately I think that's all we could realistically ask for at this point of time. We didn't have a team good enough to take on Liverpool and Manchester City. However, I think the fact that we finished more than 20 points behind second, is ridiculous. Obviously, people will say, oh, you know, you came third and you're still bitching, you're not happy with anything. It's like, true, but Manchester United fans who have been unsuccessful, their team have been unsuccessful for a long time now, were bitching when Manchester United finished second under Jose Mourinho and he won the Europa title. So, you know, all of a sudden, just because it's Chelsea fans doesn't mean that we're the ones who's not pleased. This is clearly just how the modern football fan dynamic works. So it's not just Chelsea. So, and yes, I will take that personally because I am a Chelsea fan. So all of those who just think Chelsea fans are fickle, you're no different. Especially Premier League fans in the top 6, we're all fickle. right, at the end of the day, but at least we're loyal to our clubs. And that's all these clubs can ask for, and that's all we can do, right? Because the players aren't loyal, the managers aren't loyal, and the people who run the clubs most of the time are not loyal, right? So we just gotta brush over that, right? Brush it under the carpet. Not everyone is pleased unless they win. That's the way professional football works. It's a sport. The winners are always the happiest. Right? It doesn't matter if people tell you that they're having the time of their life if they finish 16th in the Premier League. The happiest team is the team that just won the Premier League, or the team that just won the Champions League. So Man City and Liverpool, again, different class, way above Chelsea. Maybe makes sense that Sarri has left, but I do not believe that Frank Lampard is the answer to our issues. I think there's no quick fix to the answer of our issues. I think our issues will last as long as we have the same chairman and the same wages director, or whatever her job actually is. But we need to continue our dynamic of maybe finding a manager who, sure, isn't going to be long term, but we need someone who's going to last 3 or 4 years, bringing relative success. So when I see relative success, I'm talking maybe a minimum of 3 trophies in that 4-year period. And even then, to be honest, that's probably below the standards of which Chelsea are setting themselves. But regardless, I've gone on enough about Chelsea. But yes, Maurizio Sarri, permanent manager of Juventus, huge announcement. Will Juventus win the league next year, or will finally someone be able to dethrone them? I don't believe that they will be dethroned, for the simple fact that they have Cristiano Ronaldo, Paulo Dybala, and, well, you know, I could just list the starting 11, couldn't I? Juventus just have a very solid team. And Sarri is an experienced manager, and honestly, he deserves the success. You know, you hear about the long career he's had with no trophies, the Europa being his first trophy in like 30 years of being a manager, or 25 years, whatever it may be. Yeah, he deserves that position at Juventus, but once again, I'll stress this, Lampard should not go to Chelsea. He should not. He should stay at Derby for at least another 2 years, maybe get them up into the Prem, maybe have a season with them in the Prem. But either way, that's the way it is with that transfer. So we're going to talk a little bit more about player transfers now. We've had some huge ones, and I mean absolutely huge ones so far. Some are complete game-changing, by some of them a little strange, a little extortionate as well for the prices. But there has already been a phenomenal amount of money that has been spent, particularly in Spain. Barcelona and especially Real Madrid have been shelling out huge amounts of money for players, and I'll just list a couple of names here from the top 10 transfers, right? So these are the top 10 fees that have been paid so far this year for this coming season. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them have been with Real Madrid already, you know, and as I said, technically the transfer window doesn't start till the 1st, and yeah, here we are. I mean, 5 of the top 10 transfers, and the top 10 transfers is 28 million minimum. Like 10th is 28.8 million. Okay, so consider that 5 of them have gone to Real Madrid. That players of being the young Brazilian striker Rodrigo, who moved for 40.5 million. Left back, I think he was from Lyon, Ferland Mendy, moved to Real Madrid for 43 million. Eder Milito left Porto for Real Madrid for 45 million. Luka Jovic, who had a phenomenal season with Eintracht Frankfurt, again Real Madrid, 54 million. Then we've got to make a huge jump to the top transfer so far this season, which is Eden Hazard going to Real Madrid for £90 million. Of course, it would be a lot more than that if Eden Hazard hadn't have only had 1 year left on his contract. But unfortunately, 90 million is all Chelsea could get for Hazard. But think about this, Real Madrid have just bought a young promising striker, a young promising centre-back, a solid left-back, an already solid but young and developing striker in Jovic, and of course Eden Hazard, who people have argued in the past is the 3rd best player in the world. up there with the likes of Neymar, Mbappe, Griezmann, because he is that caliber of player when he's on his game. So Real Madrid really, really spending a lot of money, and there's a couple more players they've signed on top of that as well. But they have spent nearly £300 million on players, and we're in the middle of June. 300 million! Like, this completely blows the amount of money that Mourinho spent on Madrid back in the day when he bought Ronaldo and Kaká and Benzema. They had spent, after they'd sold players, they'd spent about 200 million. They've already eclipsed that by nearly 100 million. And they've talked about not being done yet. There's still players they want to sign. There's a couple of players they still want to sell. FYI, heavily believe one of those players is going to be Gareth Bale. If Gareth Bale doesn't leave Real Madrid, then clearly he's just in it for the money at this point. Because if he cares about his career, he will leave Real Madrid. Because Real Madrid fans are so disrespectful. And, since Ronaldo left, they've been so spoiled by Ronaldo. They have been so spoiled by Ronaldo. Having a player come in and score more goals than matches played. And now Bale comes, right? He plays 140 odd matches. He scores 100 goals. And fans boo him off the pitch. I'm sorry. But if I had Gareth Bale, I would scream my love for him even if we had just lost 3-0. Right? Because Gareth Bale is without question a brilliant player. And had he fulfilled his potential and not been as injury prone, he may have a Ballon d'Or already. But sadly, yeah, that injury does hinder Gareth Bale. But I do believe he'll be on his way out of Real Madrid for the simple fact that the fans disrespect him. I wouldn't want to be around that at all. These are fans who booed Ronaldo, And yes, Messi fans, I know how great Leo Messi is, but I'm sorry. Cristiano Ronaldo is proven best player in the world. Messi is the best player at Barcelona. Ronaldo has won Champions League trophies with multiple teams. He's won international trophies. He's scored more career goals. Ronaldo is a better player until Messi can achieve the things that Ronaldo has. Because Ronaldo has achieved the things that Messi has. Let's not forget that. He's achieved it, right? It's just that Messi does it a bit more. Right, he spent longer in Spain. If stats against Spanish defenses, here's a fun fact for you: with stats for Ronaldo against Spanish defenses, if he had had Leo Messi's career, so imagine if Messi had never played for Barcelona. In fact, this wonder boy was Cristiano Ronaldo. Okay, Messi recently scored his 600th goal for Barcelona. If Ronaldo was in Messi's position, same amount of time, same team, etc., he would have over 800 goals for Barcelona at this point. That's ludicrous, right? But to me, the stats just scream Ronaldo is the best. So there you have it. So we should probably talk about some of the other game-changing transfers that have happened so far. One that went under the radar, that a lot of people who I've told about were very shocked by, was the French international Lucas Hernandez leaving Atletico Madrid and going to Bayern Munich for £72 million. Technically the second most expensive centre-back in history, but to me he's a left-back. Lucas Hernandez, that's how I know him. I know him as a left-back. Regardless, what a signing for Bayern Munich. They've made a couple of good signings who, of course, we'll go through in detail. He's a good player, 23 years old. Not the only 23-year-old Frenchman that Bayern Munich have signed, as a little spoiler to who I'm about to announce next. So, left back is not all they're going for, but yes, Lucas Hernandez, World Cup winner, brilliant career with, not brilliant, but I suppose solid career with Atletico Madrid so far, so you can't really ask for a better player to really bring into your defence, especially a team like Bayern Munich, where to improve their team, they really have to dig out some brilliant talent if they want to get the best players. But yes, Lucas Hernandez, £72 million to Bayern Munich, was followed up by the £31.5 million signing of 23-year-old, also French, Benjamin Pavard. Again listed as a centre-back, but Pavard is a right-back. A brilliant player as well, also shone during the World Cup. I think that might be a reason why we're seeing so many French players move in this transfer period so far, despite Ferland Mendy not actually being in that French team. But Pavard, I was seriously impressed by in the World Cup, and I didn't know who he was before then. I saw Pavard on the team sheet in the World Cup, and I thought to myself, well, who's he? I've never heard of this Pavard before, so I followed him a bit more intently after I watched him because I thought he was good in the World Cup. He wasn't the best player I've ever seen. I'm not going to rant and rave, but I think he's a very good player. And he also proved in another game he can unleash a hell of a shot if he needs to, and that definitely fits the Bayern Munich DNA. So Pavard and Hernandez going to Bayern Munich. If you think that's good, obviously let me know. I personally think it's good. They can't really do much better than that without breaking the bank ridiculously. And well, they kind of did for Hernandez, 72 million. But I think if Bayern Munich maybe neating up their attack a bit, their midfield, I think Bayern Munich could be in with a shout for being a surprise winner for the Champions League this year. I know it's early days and so many things can still change, but I believe it's been a long while since Bayern Munich has been in that picture. Since they've been in that, it's just been so long that they are due something, at least another semi-final. And Hernandez and Pavard, they've now been to a final, they've won a final, they are trial, tested and proved players. It's all you can really ask for. So if you think Bayern Munich stand in with a chance of winning something with this new information, then of course let me know. Moving on to the other big Spanish team, we've talked about how many signings Real Madrid have already made. But talking about Barcelona this time, they've made themselves known, of course. If you don't know who Barcelona is, or if you don't think they're a big deal, well then, I think it's safe to say you probably don't watch football. Right, we're going to have a look at the transfers. I'm going to check to see if I'm on the right list. I don't think I am. Although I do know already off by heart the top signing they made, £67.5 million for the one and only Frenkie de Jong, one of the young stars who of course shone with Ajax this year. Absolutely phenomenal season for Ajax this season. Him and a few others definitely deserved a move to a bigger club. Strong midfielder. I heard he's got presence in defence, but that's not something I've really looked into too much with Frenkie de Jong. But I have watched him play, and yeah, just if they play it right, he will just fit into the Barcelona system so neatly. Because Ajax just played so smoothly this year. They were without question probably the most satisfying team to watch in the Champions League. Their football was just so accurate, so free flowing, even when they got eliminated, they were probably the best team on the night. It was just a miracle hat trick from was it Lucas? Yeah. Frenkie de Jong, great signing for Barcelona. Not their only one. They have made one other signing, and that's a Brazilian right back called Emerson, playing for Club Atlético Mineiro in Brazil. So one of those unknown Brazilians who are going to shock the world, I think this boy might be, considering they've paid nearly 11 million for him. So a new right back to perhaps look out for at Barcelona. Whether he'll get a start immediately or if he'll just be a bench player, we'll have to see. But that's a name to watch out for. Emerson, the same as Chelsea's Emerson, exact same spelling. Also looking at the departures of Barcelona, we know that Paco Alcácer went to Borussia Dortmund for just under £19 million, and this shocked me. Maybe because I play football games too much, and I know that he ends up becoming a very good player more times than not. But Barcelona have sold Marc Cucurella, 20-year-old left back, Spanish left back, and they've sold him for £2 million to SD Ibar. And if I'm Ibar, I think I've just picked up a hell of a bargain, because Mark Cucurella, I really rate. I really thought he was going to go somewhere huge. And, well, apparently not. Being sold to SD Ibar, whether or not he will be one of these players that a big club will pick up on in the future, we'll have to see, I suppose. But yes, Mark Cucurella being sold to SD Ibar, probably one of the most bizarre transfers of the year. Not a big one, for sure, but bizarre. There are some bizarre ones out there, you know. Talking of bizarre, if you didn't know this one already, then, well, I'd be surprised, especially if you're a huge fan of the Premier League. Aaron Ramsey, free transfer to Juventus. So Aaron Ramsey will be playing under Maurizio Sarri and alongside Cristiano Ronaldo in Juventus. It's incredible to think that he's gone for free. He's such a talented player, you know. This commentary is really getting on my tits. But yeah, just Ramsey going on a free transfer to Juventus. I mean, what is that all about? I mean, how did that come about? How did Juventus come to the point where they said, you know what, Aaron Ramsey will take our club to the next level? I mean, I would just like to know the thought process that goes behind that, because I can think of at least 5 midfielders I'd rather have. Don't get me wrong, I mean, he's solid, but that's it. You know, he's never won a major trophy. He's won a couple of domestics with Arsenal, sure, but is he good enough? You'll have to see. As I said, to me, that's a bizarre transfer. I'm sure Juventus think of it as a coup, and a lot of people think it's a coup to get such a player from Arsenal for free. But I really think we will have to see him play first before we know if this is worth it or not, or we start to realize, oh, okay, this is why they let him go for free. This is why they didn't fight and claw over the contract, because there was a huge rumor going around that Aaron Ramsey was rejecting all of his offers that Arsenal were giving him left, right, and centre, and that wasn't actually that true. There was 2 offers, both that were rejected, but Arsenal just stopped because Emery basically said, well, if he doesn't want to stay, I don't want to re-sign him. So yeah, I think that is actually the truth, and I think that's a lot more believable, because Emery comes across as a bit of a hard ass, which is good for Arsenal, because on a side note, Arsenal do need all the help they can get. Anyone other big transfers? I think we talked about most of the top 10. We've missed out 2. One of them is a bit... one of them is probably something not many people care about. The other one, I think, is a bargain and a half. So Giovanni Lo Celso, supposedly worth £45 million, completely disagree. I believe he's worth 10. Has joined Real Betis from PSG for £20 million. Well, I think they got ripped off. Little Real Betis, and God knows where Betis got £20 million from. That's a hell of a transfer for a mid Spanish team. It's not like they get the same television rights money as Premier League mid-table teams get. So yeah, if you're a fan of Giovanni Lo Celso, he's in the La Liga permanently this time. And now on to the bargain. So far, in my opinion, there's been a lot of transfers, but I believe this is the bargain so far, and that's Julian Brandt going to Borussia Dortmund from Bayer Leverkusen. If you know who Julian Brandt is, you follow football, you already know he's a good player and that he's going places. So to go to Dortmund, well, it's the next best thing to go into Munich for a German player, isn't it? So maybe he'll be disappointed. Nah, I'm sure he's not disappointed, but I'm disappointed, I should say, that he hasn't gone to Bayern Munich, because I believe he is good enough to fill in the shoes of the likes of Robben and Ribéry. Clearly they don't agree, but Borussia Dortmund do, and Julian Brandt will learn a hell of a lot from the likes of Marco Reus, and he will be a fantastic player. He already is. So for 22 million, I think having Julian Brandt ain't such a bad deal. I think they've done really well on that one, Dortmund. And it's not even their only signing. As I've already mentioned, they signed Paco Asalcié from Barcelona for 19 million. And they've got another one here, Torgan Hazard, for 23 million pounds. And when you look at the base values of these players, and of course I'm looking at a website, so it could be made up nonsense, but I use this one because they are very reliable and very accurate for prices and for value of players. Hazard, Brandt, and Asalcié are all worth a good amount more than what Dortmund paid for them. So Dortmund were very shrewd with their business. They've done very well. 3 players in their mid-20s. Hazard's done well at Gladbach. As I said, Brandt's done well at Leverkusen, and Asalcié did well at Dortmund on loan. Didn't quite get running at Barcelona, which was a shame, because I remember once upon a time everyone was like, oh, Asalcié, he's gone to Barcelona. Well, he'll ruffle a few feathers, you know. Well, no, Suarez just killed any chances of that happening. So yeah, we can only say that Borussia Dortmund have put themselves in a very good position, and that, well, they're going to take the fight to Munich. Munich have made their own signings, and Dortmund have made another signing for his value. So a £23 million player going for £23 million. Left back from TSG Hoffenheim, Nico Schultz, has gone to Borussia Dortmund. So, Bayern Munich seem to be improving defensively, and Borussia Dortmund seem to be improving across the board. So that is now a defensive change, a couple of midfield changes, and an attacker. So Dortmund really going to go all out to take the fight to Munich again this year, because arguably this year was Dortmund's best chance to win the Bundesliga for the first time since Klopp was the manager, and they threw it away. You know, it wasn't a matter of Bayern Munich catching up. You know, at the end of the day, the team at the top had to lose the points in order for them to catch up. So I'm sure they'll be determined to do better this year, Borussia Dortmund, so I believe they will be a serious team to watch. I don't think there will be a serious threat in the likes of the Champions League, but I believe if they were one of those teams who gets eliminated from a Champions League group and gets put into the Europa League as like a compensation for doing really well, I believe that's something they would dominate. So that's the sort of team I believe Dortmund have built. And I'm sure they will keep building, because these are early days, but I'm just staggered at how many signings certain teams have made. You know, the fact that Real Madrid have signed so many, and Dortmund. There's a lot of transfers that have happened already. It's been a crazy year. I remember going through the transfers this time last year, and you know, the most a team had spent, I think, was about 80-90 million. And like I said, you know, you've got Real Madrid borderline 300 million already. So just absolutely crazy transfer news. We're going to dive in a bit more into this top 20. We've already dove into it a bit. Wolves permanently signed Raul Jimenez from the Portuguese league. They have managed to sign him up for £34 million, so quite a hefty chunk of money for Wolves, but I'm sure that they'll justify that because, well, you know what? Wolves were fantastic this year, considering they were just promoted and that they are now going to the Europa League. I mean, that's like a fantasy career, you know. It's phenomenal achievement for Wolves, and they deserve to spend that money on good players, and Raul Jimenez is a very solid player. I won't say world class, but I will say solid. He is very solid. Most Mexican players are very solid, and he fits under that bracket. So Raul Jimenez going to Wolves, permanent deal. Frank Kessie, who went on loan to AC Milan last year, has signed permanently now, £21.5 million for the £30 million rated player. 22 years old, central midfield, once talked about joining Manchester United and Chelsea. Hasn't happened. He's gone to AC Milan, and good luck to him. Good luck to him, because AC Milan have continued to struggle despite their constant attempts to revamp the club. They just can't seem to do it, and Inter Milan seem more likely to accomplish that goal than AC Milan. On to Kerem Demirbay, moving for £29 million to Bayer Leverkusen. I think that's just a good deal, really. Not too many complaints about being overpriced or being underpriced. He's a solid player. Not a lot of people will know the name Demirbay if I said it, but he is a good player. He is a good player. Another Hoffenheim guy, by the way, to go for a lot of money. But yeah, there he is. Kerem Demirbay going to Leverkusen. Solid signing. I think Leverkusen definitely trying to secure a place in the Champions League next season as well. This signing caught me off guard, like pretty much completely off guard. Villarreal attacking midfielder Pablo Fornals has signed with West Ham for £25 million. It's a lot of money to shell out on a 23-year-old who... He's done good things, but he hasn't really done that much. The best thing they could probably acquit him to doing this year and justifying the money is saying that he made it to the semi-finals of... Was it the semi-finals or was it the quarter-finals of the Europa? I can't remember if it was quarter-finals or the semis, but either way, that... You could argue that he was maybe one of the best Villarreal players last year, and maybe that's what's justified the price tag. But I maybe would have taken him on loan first, at least for a season, just to see how he was going to react, just to see how well he does. Because it's, it's a big risk. It's a big risk to take players like that. It's a big risk. But West Ham have... It has paid off for them before, It did pay off for them with Payet at first. Just hopefully this guy stays around a bit longer and is a lot more consistent. Because that's really what West Ham needs, is consistency. And Manuel Pellegrini, great manager, obviously knows that. So Pablo Fornals... It's interesting, we've talked about it a good bit. I've just skipped over some of them, just saying the price because I don't really know the players. I do know Fornals. We'll have to see what happens. I believe that if he keeps his head down, he could have a pretty impressive season and he could do some damage, particularly to newer promoted teams. So I don't see West Ham having any struggles of relegation. I don't even think it would be a question. I can't believe that, I've had this random Polish team playing Arsenal in this game and they haven't done anything yet. It's ridiculous. So we've done Nico Schultz because I was covering Borussia Dortmund. On to the 20th to 25 now for the top transfers. Actually, screw it. We'll take out those last two because they're not very big. These are probably the last main four transfers that have happened. And of course, after I list these four, I will look to see if there's any maybe hidden gems that people will be interested in knowing. And then we will talk about rumors. Rumors, of course, just salt of the earth when it comes to football. I love transfer rumors. I just love the hype that comes behind it. If someone's talking about signing with someone and they go in a completely different direction, I just love stuff like that. It's a drama that I can tolerate. It's not like a Jeremy Kyle level drama that makes you want to kill yourself. It's something that's genuinely entertaining, and absolutely. So we're gonna just knuckle down with these last couple of transfers. Alex Meret, Italian manager, Italian goalkeeper, 22 years old. £20 million, value 23 million, so not a bad signing. Goes from Udinese to SSC Napoli, so another signing for Carlo Ancelotti and co. Good goalkeeper, Alex Meret, absolutely Brilliant young goalkeeper. Big things for him in the future, although maybe not as big for the likes of Gianluigi Donnarumma. But I think we will have to watch this guy quite closely. Speaking of Italians, we now have Bryan Cristante. Bryan Cristante, who's been passed around a little bit in the Italian leagues. He now goes to Roma for £19 million. Good signing. Again, might have wanted to take him on loan first. It's just a big gamble with a guy. Excuse me. It's just a big gamble to sign a guy who has just done very little. You know, in the grand scheme of things. I mean, Bryan Cristante hasn't really done much. And just now we're in this day and age when we're seeing all these players moving for about £20 million. And we're treating it like nothing. But you've got to think about it. That's £20 million. Just imagine if you woke up and in your bank account you had £20 million, right? For being a footballer and never having won a trophy. Like, that is this, you know. This is how much money is being spent. Actually, sorry, that was a bad metaphor. Imagine if you woke up with all that money, right? And then you were told that you've got to spend it all on this guy who hasn't won a trophy before. So that's what I meant to say. So just think about that for a minute. Just how much money these days gets wasted on talent who are technically unproven at a huge level. You know, £20 million once upon a time would buy you the best player in the friggin' world. £20 million now gives you a hit or miss player, which obviously is just not ideal for anyone. For fans, for TV deals, for clubs. And I think Cristante is one of these players who could just fall either side of the wire for Roma. The only real thing he's got going for him is that he's Italian, so he's at home. Apart from that, really don't see any other positives out of this, you know, for them. It's just going to be, it's going to be a crazy year for football. It is. We're going to see something strange. You know, we've seen a lot of great shit, but I think we're going to see some really crazy results this year. The teams are just setting us up perfectly for it. So I totally believe that's what's going to happen. Right, the next signing, little bit out of nowhere and perhaps a little reckless from a newly promoted team. So, one of the new teams that are coming up to the Premier League this year is Aston Villa. Now, Aston Villa, of course, have a huge history, absolutely huge history when it comes to the Premier League. They're actually one of the most successful Premier League teams of all time, actually. Excuse me again. Yes, eager to get back up to the Premier League. They have now, after beating Frank Lampard's Derby in the playoff. And they have immediately spent $22.5 million on a Brazilian striker called Wesley. Wesley plays with Club Bruges. So he plays in Belgium. And somehow, yeah, there's this £22.5 million price tag, but apparently he's worth $18 million. So I mean, he wouldn't have that value if he hadn't done anything already as a 22-year-old. But I've personally never heard of this guy, and £22.5 million, as I've said, is just a lot of money, especially on a striker for a newly promoted team in the Premier League. I mean, I really rate the likes of Alexander Mitrovic, but let's face it, did he really do that much for Fulham this year? No. You know, they got relegated. So, they're taking a big risk. Aston Villa, maybe you can admire it, maybe you think it's stupid. Either way, it's happened, it's done, it's a done deal. And speaking of done deals, Southampton have made the deal for Danny Ings 100% official. £20 million for the Englishman, who didn't really do anything at Liverpool. Hopefully can resurrect his career a little bit. Because people used to really rate Danny Ings, you know. I mean, that's why he was signed to Liverpool in the first place. But it was a bit bizarre. So we just got to think about that. But we'll see what happens there because I mean he has played there. So there's a good chance. There's a good chance for Danny Ings. Now, these next two signings I have down as gems because of their market value compared to the price that was paid by the clubs. And this is another good bit of good German business, which seems to be the theme so far from most of the top clubs in Germany. Eintracht Frankfurt have signed Filip Kostic. You may have vaguely have heard the name before. Kostic, solid player, Serbian descent. Market value £20 million. Frankfurt have managed to pick him up for 5.4 million. And speaking of 5.4 million, that is the exact amount that Mainz 05 FSV have spent for Spanish left-back Aaron Martin, who is currently valued at £18 million. And again, like I said, signed for £5 million. So those last two, brilliant deals. We do have a couple of bigger transfers with bigger transfer fees than that. And some of them are a bit crazy, if I do say so myself. Again, some of these are bargains, but some of them have really been blown out of the water for who they are, I should say. Well, we talked about Wolves signing Jimenez earlier. That's not the only player they've signed who they had loaned in. They also had loaned in Leander Den Donker from Belgium. They've made that deal official. The £15 million player moves for £12 million. So you could argue a good deal for Wolves. Den Donker, solid player, good for Wolves. Good for Wolves, I will say that. 30-year-old Brazilian centre-back Felipe. I'm not sure if this is the same Felipe that I'm thinking of. But either way, £18 million value goes to Atletico Madrid for £18 million. So they go for his value. 23-year-old centre-forward Andre Petagna. I highly rate Petagna, actually, and I'm shocked that he's gone to Spal for £10 million. I mean, unbelievable. I mean, I would be trying to sign Petagna as a backup striker for a Premier League team, you know, and he's gone to Spal. It's just ludicrous. Great deal for Spal, though. Great stuff for him. Another goalkeeper on the move, Emil Odero, I believe, was a backup goalkeeper for Juventus. He has gone to Sampdoria to get more game time. £18 million for the 22-year-old goalkeeper. Again, another Italian goalkeeper. There's so many talented Italian goalkeepers right now. I feel so sorry for the national manager, for the national coach, because yeah, there's so many good goalkeepers in Italy right now. If you remember Gregor Krychowiak, however you want to pronounce it, the Polish centre midfielder, defensive midfielder, who's played at PSG, and I know he's played in the Premier League, but I can't remember who with. Either way, for only £11 million, he has now gone to Loko Moscow in Russia. What a poor drop for the Polish guy. He was once had the whole world in his hands, and everyone was talking about this guy, who has been phenomenal in the past. You know, as I said, he's had a stint at the Premier League. He's been with PSG. He was fantastic at Sevilla. He was one of Sevilla's best ever midfielders. He's gone to Moscow. So if you watch Russian football, Krychowiak is coming your way. And now we come up to our first deal where the transfer fee is huge compared to the player market value, and it probably doesn't surprise you that it involves a Premier League team. We've talked about a couple of the lower Premier League teams having made signings, but finally, this is the biggest signing from one of the top 6 teams in England so far. You know, they've sold a couple of big players like Eden Hazard, but this is technically the biggest transfer so far, and that's Manchester United signing Swansea midfielder Daniel James. Daniel James, 21 years old, value 2.7 million. Manchester United paid £15.5 million for the young winger. In my opinion, that is a big old rip-off. I would have paid about 7 or 8 for him, and if they had told me they wanted more, I would have told them to get stuffed. But Daniel James coming to Manchester United, big risk. He's obviously not going to be a starting 11 player, which is why I can kind of understand. £15 million. That's not a lot of money, right? When we're talking about the main, Manchester United, we've had €100 million transfers, so 15 million isn't a lot in the grand scheme of things. But just think about that. That's £15 million for a championship player, right, whose value doesn't even exceed 3 million. So just think about that for a second. And this isn't, again, I'll stress on this website, it's not just a matter of people assigning random figures to people. It is all statistic based, it's age based. It's a well worked out system, and I find it to be more accurate than not. So yes, Daniel James going to Manchester United. What a crazy life it is. Juventus have finally been able to shift Stefano Stuaro going to Genoa for £15 million. Speaking of Genoa, they also signed goalkeeper Ionut Radu, the Romanian goalkeeper, 22 years old. Good to watch him, so Genoa might be worth watching this year. Central midfielder Jakub Jankto, who most people will probably know as that Czech guy who ends up being very good in Football Manager. He's gone to Sampdoria for £13.5 million. Good signing for them, very solid. Not really much to say as of yet. The once famed Senegalese striker of AC Milan, Mbaye Niang, who was once said to have the whole world at his fingertips, he will be the best striker in the world one day, has gone to Stade Rennes. He's gone to Rennes for £13.5 million. One of the four £13.5 million transfers I'm about to tell you about. So yes, Niang has fall from grace, sadly for him, the 24-year-old. Maybe he'll bounce back at Rennes, who knows. We have Diego Carlos, 26-year-old Brazilian centre-back, has moved to Sevilla. Good signing for them. 19-year-old French left-winger Moussa Diaby has signed for Bayer Leverkusen for £13.5 million. And for just under £13.5 million, Lloyd Kelly, 20-year-old English left-back, has signed with Bournemouth. And I bet they are so happy that they have been able to sign an English player for less than £30 million. Because it really is hard for an English team to buy an English player these days. Which is a sin. When you think about it, I think it's ridiculous that we have built an environment in football that now homegrown players cost more to buy. It's ridiculous, isn't it? But this is football, this is the sport we all love. It's just the politics outside that ruined everything. And funnily enough, politics ruins everything. We know that already, especially in the UK and in most third world countries, where there are riots all the time. Took a pretty dark turn there. I'm trying to see if there's any other big real transfers to mention here. Hannes Wolf going to Red Bull Leipzig. That's actually a good transfer. Hannes Wolf, brilliant young brilliant young Austrian attacking midfielder, 20 years old, 10 million. Leipzig, of course, are a rising force in German football. Definitely got to keep their eyes on them, and Hannes Wolf fits the profile of young, hungry, and needing wins there. So great signing there. We've skipped over a couple of signings that aren't really that important, like Simone Zaza going back to Torino. I think no one really cares about Zaza anymore. He's a bit of a joke, a bit of a meme ever since that stupid penalty he took for Italy all those years ago. Here's a good signing, though, involving another Austrian, Maximilian Vauber, brilliant young player again, also has gone to Sevilla. So it's not just Real Madrid who are completely rebuilding in Spain this year. It seems Sevilla have made a hell of a lot of signings themselves. VfL Wolfsburg have signed Kevin Mbabu, the Swiss right back for £8 million. And if I'm not mistaken, if they keep a hold of Rodriguez, it means that both of their fullbacks will be Swiss, which can only be good for the team. Can only be good for the team. Unconfirmed transfer fee for Francisco Montero, a young Spanish centre-back going to Atletico Madrid. I believe it was a free transfer, but supposedly there is some money behind it. Another signing for Chelsea. Another selling for Chelsea. Ola Aina. You may know him as the guy who threatened to quit for Arsenal. That did not happen. Market value 9 million, moved to Torino for 9 million. So he might finally get the game time he so craves. Welcome to Italy, to Enya. Here's an interesting one. 17-year-old Ander Baranexia going to Real Sociedad. He is something else, I tell you. Keep an eye out for him. His name is spelled Barretxea. He is a fantastic young talent. He really is. And he's gone to Sociedad. And honestly, if I was Barcelona or Real Madrid, I should have signed him. Because he will be something special. Mark my words. Mark that name. Ander Baranexia. He will be something else. Mark my words. We've got a couple of pretty young players here. Younger Pedro Neto has signed with Lazio. Here's a good one. If you remember him from Chelsea, and he moved to China. Central midfielder Ramirez. He was a very good player, wasn't he? 32 years old now, has gone back home to Brazil to play for Palmeiras. And honestly, after the way Jorginho and Kovacic handled the Chelsea midfield this year, I would honestly take Ramirez back. And I would pay anything up to a certain amount to get him back without question. Leipzig have signed another young talent, left back this time, Luan Candido, 18 years old, Brazilian, 7 million. So I would say that's a relatively good signing. Might not be the best ever, of course not, because we've gone through a lot, and some of them will already be better than the ones we're listing now. But it'll be good. And hang on, I'll just take a brief second to answer a message. Right, okay. So, where was I? Yes, we're talking about Luan Candido. He's moved to Leipzig. Keep an eye on him. He'll be good. Of course, we all know Vincent Kompany has left Manchester City. 33-year-old, definitely one of the trailblazing players for this new rich just era for Manchester City, Manchester City as a club has changed forever because of who owns them. It means that whoever the next owner will be will have to be rich in order to take over the club. So Manchester City has changed now forever. And it's very likely a lot of teams will end up doing the same. And here's an interesting one, and you haven't heard this from me, okay? There is a very strong rumor that the family who is a huge rival, and I mean huge, fierce rival of the Manchester City owner's family, is going to be taking over Newcastle. And what I mean by why I'm saying it like this as if it's controversial is because there is someone who wants to buy Newcastle who has put out a hit, right, to kill the grandfather of the owners of Manchester City. And it wasn't just a called out hit, it happened. This guy's grandfather was murdered on the order of this guy who might just get involved with the Premier League as well. So there's about to become some very serious Saudi Arabian politics in the Premier League. And honestly, I think if it comes to that, I think they should be removed from the country because we can't have that nonsense going on in Britain. It's certainly not around football. If they want to go home and shoot each other, then that's what they should do. Okay, but yeah, you heard it Okay, fine. You know what? You did not. Never mind that you didn't hear it. You did hear it here, right? There's going to be some serious drama hitting the Premier League next year if Newcastle gets this new owner, right? And mark my words, if you go to a Newcastle-Manchester City game, you do not want to be there, right? You do not want to be there. That's an absolute promise. So just let's bear that in mind. Vincent Kompany has gone back to RSC Anderlecht, and the next signing I'm about to announce is one that I was shocked at, absolutely shocked. And that was that Borussia Dortmund had let go the young Swedish striker Alexander Isak for £6 million to Real Sociedad. Another coup signing for Sociedad. That's now them got them, Isak and Baranexia. So just brilliant transfer stuff from Real Sociedad. They might be a threat next season, a serious threat to at least Europa spots. So let's keep an eye on Real Sociedad. Real Betis have signed back Juan Mi. Manchester City shelled out £7 million for a US goalkeeper. Now, this signing makes no sense to me whatsoever. Zach Steffen, American, and as I said, moved for £7 million. I don't see the logic here. I mean, why would you not just get an experienced goalkeeper as your backup goalkeeper? Because, I mean, it's not like Ederson's going anywhere soon. You know, there's a reason why they spent a lot of money on him, and he's young. So, why Manchester City feel they need to spend £7 million on a backup goalkeeper who may make only 2 appearances next year is beyond me. I mean, that's not worth it. You know, surely they'd want a new Mark Wright. You know, like, we've got Robert Green, and fair, we've got their old backup goalkeeper, Willy Caballero, but they didn't re-sign his contract, so that's their fault, not ours. But yeah, why Manchester City haven't just gone for like a Reina or maybe a Casillas? Could you imagine? You know, cause, actually, he was Real Madrid and Guardiola was Barca, so maybe that would never happen. But you know what I mean? Like, why doesn't City just get an experienced goalkeeper who knows how to pull off a couple of saves as a reserve? You know, why spend that much money on, what's effectively a reserve over a substitute, isn't it? You know, a goalkeeper on the bench is effectively a reserve because of how very little often goalkeepers get injured. Of course, with Atletico Madrid, we haven't seen them really sign anyone yet, but they are selling more players. They've sold Luciano Vieto. Everyone thought he was going to be special, didn't really catch. Now he's going to Sporting Lisbon for £7 million. That's a pretty good signing for Lisbon, I would say. And I think we have covered pretty much most of the top transfers. Going through the list now just to see if there's any maybe big names that people will know. If you know Patrick Roberts, the youngster who excelled at Celtic and is signed onto Manchester City, he will be playing for Norwich in the Premier League next year. So we will get to see him on Match of the Day doing his thing. So let's hope Patrick Roberts can prove why he's a big deal in the youth concept of football. Now here's an interesting one. Everton have loaned out John Joe Kenny, who I really rate as a right back, and I know they do have Seamus Coleman, but surely there should have been room for John Joe Kenny in that team. But evidently not, and he's gone on loan to Schalke, which probably means he will be making a permanent transfer next year. Another English player going to Germany. What a shock. Any other big ones? Alex Ferrari going to Sampdoria. Saw that coming. It's not really a big deal in the grand scheme of things. Young striker who everyone raves about on FIFA. Jan Fiete Arp. That's ARP. It is just Arp. He is 19. And he is moved to Bayern Munich for less than £3 million. That is good business from Bayern Munich. Because Arp, I believe, is a serious contender in the future. He's just a quality player. He is just an outright quality player. And really, that's all there is to it. He is just an outright quality player. So we will see Arp, I'm sure, deliver some pretty good memories off the bench, probably for Bayern Munich this year. And in the future, I think he will be seriously entertaining as well. Going through the board, Lucas Perez, you may remember him as the Spaniard who did nothing for Arsenal. He's just gone to Alaves for £2 million. Wow. Another one of those fall from grace players for sure. Rafinha, of course, leaving Bayern Munich, has gone to Flamengo in Brazil, so that's him pretty much gone until retirement, I would think. I wouldn't. Arsenal have sold one of their reserve goalkeepers, about bloody time. David Ospina, the Colombian goalkeeper who shone in the 2014 World Cup, which earned him a good move, has gone to Napoli for £3 million. And that's all the real big transfers today. So until next time, just keep watching football.